I'm not interested in basically litigating something that is finished that makes my network look bad, okay? I'm not interested in making my network look bad at all.
At 76, Bill O'Reilly's life stands as a haunting reminder that fame doesn't always bring happiness. Behind the commanding voice and the confident presence that once ruled television screens lies a man scarred by heartbreak and controversy. Once at the height of his career, O'Reilly faced public humiliation when several women came forward with shocking allegations that shattered his image and reputation. But perhaps even more painful than the scandals was his lifelong search for true love, a love he never truly found. Now, as he looks back on a life filled with power, loss, and loneliness, the tragedy of Bill O'Reilly's story is deeper and more heartbreaking than anyone could have imagined. Bill O'Reilly was born on September 10, 1949, in Manhattan, New York City, a child of Irish Catholic roots. His family's story was one of hard work and service. His relatives wore uniforms and carried duty in their hearts. Police officers, firefighters, and teachers who built their lives around community and faith. One of his grandfathers even patrolled the streets of Brooklyn, a quiet guardian of order. Growing up in that world gave Bill a deep respect for discipline, honesty, and moral conviction. His education began at St. Bridget's, a Catholic school in Westbury, Long Island, where strict lessons in faith and ethics shaped his understanding of right and wrong. Later, at Chaminade High School, known for its demanding academics and rigid discipline, Bill sharpened his intellect and learned to stand by his opinions, a habit that would define him in the years to come. At Marist College, he majored in history and threw himself into campus life, playing football as a punter and writing passionately for the school newspaper. A semester abroad in London broadened his horizons, stirring an early fascination with the wider world. After graduating in 1971, he briefly chased a dream of baseball before turning to teaching history and English at a Catholic school in Florida. There, guiding young minds and coaching baseball, he began to see the challenges of education, lessons that would one day echo through his powerful and often polarizing voice. Bill O'Reilly's journey into television began humbly, a young man chasing a dream through the flickering glow of local newsrooms. In 1975, at just 26, he landed his first on-air job at a small station in Scranton, Pennsylvania, where he delivered weather reports and covered local happenings. It was far from the bright lights of national fame, but it was where he learned to command the camera and the confidence of a storyteller finding his voice. By 1977, his path led him to WFAA-TV in Dallas, where his reporting grew sharper, bolder. The defining moment came a year later when his investigation into police corruption shook the city and forced several officers to resign. The story earned him acclaim and a reputation as a fearless truth-seeker. In 1979, he joined KMG-HTV in Denver, where his intensity met its next test. When a skyjacking gripped the Denver airport in 1980, O'Reilly reported through every tense hour, his calm voice steady amid chaos. That coverage won him an Emmy and marked the moment when a small-town reporter became a national name. In 1982, Bill O'Reilly returned to his hometown of New York City, joining WCBS-TV and stepping into one of the toughest assignments of his early career. For 6 long months, he delved into a web of corruption among city marshals, uncovering bribery, extortion, and abuse of power that had thrived in silence for years. His relentless pursuit of truth led to real reform and earned him yet another Emmy, cementing his image as a journalist who wouldn't flinch in the face of power. That same year, he moved to the national stage with CBS News, where his assignments took him far from home. In war-torn El Salvador, he reported from the front lines, capturing the human toll of conflict with a rawness that few dared to show. By 1986, he joined ABC News, where his work on stories like the Exxon Valdez oil spill earned national recognition. For weeks, he chronicled the heartbreaking damage in Alaska, giving a voice to those devastated by the disaster. Then, in 1989, fate intervened. Inside Edition, a struggling new program, replaced its host after just 3 weeks, and O'Reilly, originally hired as a correspondent, suddenly found himself behind the anchor desk. In his words, "I went from nobody to somebody in about 15 minutes." Bill O'Reilly's first day as the host of Inside Edition arrived on February 1, 1989, and he wasted no time making his presence felt. He opened with a fiery, on-air monologue condemning the excesses of tabloid journalism, a bold move that signaled a new direction. Within a month, viewership surged by 35%, and suddenly the once struggling show had found its voice, strong, unfiltered, and unmistakably O'Reilly. Under his leadership, Inside Edition began to shift its tone. The show mixed hard news with true crime stories, celebrity scandals, and emotional human interest pieces. What set it apart wasn't the content, but O'Reilly himself, his blunt, confrontational style, his refusal to sugarcoat the truth, and his ability to turn even small stories into must-watch television. By 1993, Inside Edition had become the most-watched infotainment program in the country, drawing more than 8 million viewers daily and beating out rivals like A Current Affair and Hard Copy. Younger audiences especially gravitated toward his no-nonsense delivery. They saw in him someone unafraid to challenge authority or convention. The early 90s were O'Reilly's defining years. He scored headline-making exclusives, including a 1994 interview with convicted murderer Joel Steinberg that pulled in a record 12 million viewers. At times, his aggressive approach stirred controversy, like in 1991, when he confronted a judge accused of leniency toward criminals. The exchange became national news and further solidified his image as the pit bull of journalism. It was also during this era that he coined a phrase that would later become his signature, the no-spin zone. Then, at the height of his success, O'Reilly made a move no one expected. In 1994, he walked away from Inside Edition to study at Harvard's Kennedy School of Government. Critics called him reckless for abandoning such a popular show, but O'Reilly saw it as a chance to evolve, to prepare for something greater. That something greater came soon after. In 1996, he joined the newly launched Fox News Channel, an untested network trying to challenge media giants like CNN. O'Reilly was given his own program, The O'Reilly Factor, and from its debut, the show was unlike anything on television. His confrontational interviews, sharp monologues, and populist tone resonated deeply with viewers who felt ignored by mainstream media. Within 3 years, The O'Reilly Factor surpassed Larry King Live in ratings, a staggering feat few thought possible. By 2003, his program had become the #1 show in cable news, a position it would hold for 16 consecutive years. At its peak in 2009, over 3 million viewers tuned in nightly, and during major events that number swelled past 5 million, numbers usually reserved for prime-time network TV. During the 2012 presidential election, O'Reilly drew 4.1 million nightly viewers, more than double his closest competition. But his influence went beyond ratings. O'Reilly became a towering figure in conservative media, shaping its tone and inspiring a new generation of broadcasters, including Sean Hannity, who saw him as both mentor and trailblazer. His distinctive mix of opinion and investigation became the blueprint for an entire genre of television. O'Reilly's success extended to publishing as well. His Killing series, beginning with Killing Lincoln and followed by Killing Kennedy, Killing Jesus, and others, sold more than 17 million copies worldwide, making him one of the best-selling nonfiction authors of his time. By the early 2000s, he had become both a media empire and a household name. At Fox News, his dominance came with immense rewards. Reports suggested he earned nearly $20 million a year, making him one of television's highest-paid figures. By 2015, he wasn't just the face of Fox News. He was Fox News. The presidents agreed to sit across from him, knowing the weight of his audience. In 2014, his pre-Super Bowl interview with Barack Obama drew over 4 million viewers, cementing his position as one of the most powerful voices in American television. While Bill O'Reilly's professional life soared to extraordinary heights, his personal world was quietly unraveling. On November 2, 1996, he married Maureen McPhilmy, a public relations executive. At first, it seemed like a perfect match, a rising television star and a poised, intelligent partner who shared his sense of ambition. For years, they appeared to have stability and success. But behind the facade, tensions were building. After 14 years together, the marriage collapsed. Their separation in 2010 and divorce a year later marked the beginning of a bitter and deeply public battle. What followed was not a quiet parting, but a storm. O'Reilly accused Maureen of using her divorce settlement to support a relationship with a Nassau County police detective, Jeffrey Gross, whom she later married. He filed a $10 million lawsuit claiming she had deceived him during the divorce proceedings. The dispute quickly spiraled into accusations, investigations, and emotional turmoil, with their 2 children caught painfully in the middle. Maureen sought full custody in 2012, alleging that O'Reilly rarely fulfilled his parental responsibilities, instead delegating them to a therapist. The case became a long, exhausting legal war. By 2015, the court ruled in her favor, granting her full custody of their son and daughter. O'Reilly appealed, unwilling to accept the outcome. But in 2016, the appellate court upheld the decision. The judges noted that the children themselves had expressed a clear desire to live with their mother, describing her home as safe and nurturing, words that quietly implied what the court would not say outright. The most disturbing revelations emerged during those proceedings. Court documents included testimony from O'Reilly's daughter, who described witnessing an act of violence years earlier. At just 9 years old, she said she had seen her father grab her mother by the throat, pull her down a staircase, and hold his grip as her mother struggled to breathe. The account was harrowing, an image that seemed to haunt the rest of the family's story. As she grew older, O'Reilly's daughter spoke of the lasting impact of that moment, of fear, distance, and a broken bond that could never be fully repaired. She described her father as a man consumed by anger, someone too proud, or perhaps too wounded, to reach out. For a figure who built his career on control and authority, his private life had become a tragedy, a reminder that power and success cannot shield anyone from the collapse of the home they once built. The court's final decision in 2016 struck a heavy blow for Bill O'Reilly. His children, now teenagers, chose to live with their mother, leaving him with only limited influence over their schooling and medical choices. For a man who had built his public persona around defending family values and criticizing absent fathers, the irony was painful. The once powerful voice of moral authority now found himself living the very story he had often condemned on air. But his personal losses were soon overshadowed by something even darker. Allegations of sexual harassment began to surface, tarnishing the image he had spent decades building. One of the first and most publicized accusations came from Andrea Macris, a producer on his own show. She claimed O'Reilly had made late-night phone calls filled with graphic and unwanted sexual comments, including a bizarre moment where he described a fantasy involving her in the shower, confusing a falafel with a loofah. The strange details made headlines and turned what could have been a quiet settlement into a public scandal. Years later, in 2017, another woman, Wendy Walsh, spoke out. She said O'Reilly had promised her career opportunities at Fox News, but withdrew them when she refused his advances. Unlike others, Walsh had signed no confidentiality agreement, allowing her story to be heard in full. Soon after, a black Fox News employee came forward, alleging that O'Reilly had called her hot chocolate and made degrading noises toward her. Then came the revelation that changed everything. The New York Times reported that O'Reilly and Fox News had quietly paid $13 million over 15 years to settle claims from 5 women who accused him of harassment. The public reaction was one of disbelief. For many, it wasn't just the accusations that shocked them, but the years of silence that had allowed it all to continue. A haunting reminder that even the most powerful can fall, not from enemies, but from the truths they tried hardest to bury. In January 2017, just weeks before Fox News renewed his contract with a staggering $25 million annual deal, Bill O'Reilly quietly paid $32 million to settle a lawsuit brought by former Fox analyst Liz Weil. Her allegations went far beyond inappropriate comments. They included verbal abuse, coercion, and claims of forced sexual encounters. Another woman said he had even sent her explicit material, including disturbing pornographic content. The revelations painted a haunting picture of a man who had once embodied authority and control, now exposed as someone accused of abusing both. When the New York Times published the details, the silence around O'Reilly shattered. More women came forward. High-profile attorney Lisa Bloom, representing several accusers, called the moment a turning point for women in media, saying, "This is what happens when women speak their truth." Her words ignited a broader reckoning at Fox News and beyond. Former colleagues also began to speak out, including political commentator Margaret Hoover, who recalled being treated as little more than a decorative backdrop. Many women described feeling scrutinized for their appearance and uneasy under O'Reilly's watch. As the accusations piled up, the network's advertisers began to flee. Within days, more than 50 major companies, from BMW to Mercedes-Benz, withdrew their sponsorships. The empire O'Reilly had built over 2 decades began to crumble almost overnight. On April 19, 2017, Fox News released a short but decisive statement. Bill O'Reilly was no longer with the network. For the man who had been its defining face, it was a stunning and humiliating end. Just months earlier, he had signed one of the most lucrative deals in cable news history. Now, he was out. Not for falling ratings, but for the weight of his own controversies. Yet in true O'Reilly fashion, he refused to disappear. 5 days after his firing, he launched No Spin News, a podcast borrowing its name from his old Fox catchphrase, the No Spin Zone. Initially available only to premium subscribers on his website, it quickly attracted a devoted following. By August that same year, O'Reilly expanded it into a video show that echoed the familiar format of the O'Reilly Factor. Same style, same fire, but now independent. In 2020, No Spin News found a new home on Newsmax TV, returning O'Reilly to cable screens, albeit on a smaller network. Later, it began airing on the First TV, a digital platform that helped him reconnect with his conservative base. By 2022, his voice once again filled the airwaves through syndication on more than 50 radio stations across the country, a full-circle moment for a broadcaster who had started his career behind a microphone. O'Reilly also leaned into live appearances. Just 2 months after leaving Fox, he hit the road with comedian Dennis Miller for a tour called The Spin Stops Here. The events were sellouts, with ticket prices reaching up to $499,000 for private appearances, proving his loyal fan base hadn't abandoned him. In 2021, he joined former President Donald Trump on a national speaking tour, a high-profile reunion that drew both controversy and crowds. Trump had publicly defended O'Reilly back in 2017, calling him a good person and dismissing the allegations. Their alliance continued, with O'Reilly urging Trump to run again in 2021 and interviewing him at major events. Even after years away from Fox, O'Reilly's presence remained undeniable. In 2024, following an assassination attempt on Trump, he appeared on The Daily Show with Jon Stewart, an unexpected platform for the conservative firebrand. The appearance showed that, love him or hate him, O'Reilly still commanded attention, even among audiences that once mocked him. Today, O'Reilly lives quietly in his grand estate in Manhasset, Long Island, a mansion he purchased in 2000 for $4.1 million. The property, with its sweeping waterfront views, 10 bedrooms, 5 bathrooms, and glistening pool, stands as a monument to his success and perhaps a reminder of the empire he lost. Behind its elegant walls, the echoes of his rise and fall linger. The young reporter who took on corruption, the television giant who ruled the airwaves, and the man whose ambition burned so bright it consumed everything around him.